All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special Entertainment Buddha cast here at Entertainment Buddha. Be sure to check us out, as always, on entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek one post at a time. Why is this special, you ask? We have Jeff Salmonen joining us. Jeff Salmonen is the creator of Lost Hope. Jeff, how are you doing?
That's right. I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing good, thanks. Joining us also is my cohort in the No Pun Intended NFL podcast, Mr. Justin
Cohort.
Ludwig.
Yes, the same guy who ate a bag full of Happy Cola gummies, and now I'm sad. I'm sad cola.
Yeah, I think you owe them a letter of complaint.
It's going to be an endless journey to find the next version of the So Delicious gummies.
Sounds like another Avaz.org campaign.
I know. It's like we need the Dreamcast, we need So Delicious gummies, and what, Ecto Cooler? Is that the trifecta? Is that the perfect storm?
Yeah, I think we get some Ecto Cooler back. That would be a huge plus.
I don't know if that's a perfect storm the next morning.
Well, you don't worry about the future. You worry about the present, right, Jeff?
That's true. That's for future Justin's problem.
Future
right?
me, you're going to not like this. Past me. Well, knock it the hell off. Future me. Yeah, made sense at the time.
All right. And Jeff is joining us all the way from Vancouver?
Victoria. Yeah, right outside of Vancouver.
Okay.
Vancouver Island, actually.
All right. Is it nice and cold up there?
It's not too bad, actually. Just a lot of rain. We're pretty much a rainforest, so I should be expecting that.
It finally, I'm here on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. It finally got cold. It's been a warm winter till today. So, but we're not here to talk about the weather. Let's get down to it. Jeff, you are the creator of Lost Hope. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit of what surrounds this?
All right, well, Lost Hope, obviously, is an animated series that we're trying to create between my wife and I. We've been together for 15 years, and we've been creating things like comic books and live-action web series and mini-series together. And so we finally decided, let's make our 10-year goal of having an animation studio happen. And so we jumped right in. We bought some software licenses. We got some workstations, got a couple of people involved, did some casting, got some great voices talent involved, and basically we want to make a comedy animated sci-fi the likes of Archer kind of smashed with Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, and I watched the most recent trailer that you sent me the other day, and I think that's a very accurate description. Is Archer meets Star Wars. Yeah,
that's definitely what we're going for. I mean, I'm a big fan of all the Adult Swim cartoons. Venture Brothers is up there with one of my favorites as well. Of course, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd myself. I love everything. I miss Firefly like everyone else does.
Right,
I want more Battlestar. I want more Star Trek. And so, me and Natalie decided, let's just make more sci-fi ourselves. And that's kind of how it came to fruition.
Awesome. And how long have you guys been working on this?
Well, so far about 2 years, I think, is when we started. I mean, we didn't want to go to Kickstarter until we had something to show, and we're basically done all our pre-production, which we have done now. So over the last couple of years, we built out our character rigs, our 3D sets, our props, our environments, and got our voice actors cast and got them recording the full episodes and everything. So now we're just going to head to Kickstarter this month to try and get a 4-part pilot up and running.
Awesome. So when are you hoping to have this on Kickstarter?
Kickstarter launches mid this month, around the 15th, so We're really pushing for that. We got a Thunderclap campaign to announce that for anyone who wants to sign up. It's just a donation of a tweet. And then from there, we're going to try and run that for 30 days till mid of February and hopefully meet our goals.
Awesome. Well, we hope you make it too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the cast? I'm just kind of looking over some of the names here. Is this something where did you seek out people? Did you post something online and have people come to you, or what was the process for getting these voice actors?
It's kind of a mix of all that, actually. First of all, I cast a couple of my local friends here who I've worked with before on some of our other projects, and that led to me getting a couple of other people on board who they knew. Then I went out and I literally just flat out asked Vince Casso, who's best known for his role as Blades in Felicia Day's The Guild. And he led to me finding some more actors out of LA, including Marisha Ray from Geek and Sundry and Critical Role. And then on the flip side, I had a friend out in New Zealand who has his own animation company where he's making an animated series called Arcs for Homicides. And he wanted to get involved somehow, so we cast him as a character. And he had this woman that named Anna Hewlett that he'd worked with doing voice acting before. And he thought she'd be a great role for our main character, Clara. And so we had her come in. She just nailed it out of the park, so we ended up hiring her on, and she happened to do stage shows with Michael Hurst, best from Hercules and Xena, and most recently Ash vs. Evil Dead. He also directed Spartacus Sand and Blood, and he's kind of a big deal in New Zealand. And so we got him on board, and he just loved the scripts, dove right into being Captain Reiner. And so basically everything kind of fell into place. I feel very fortunate that these people are as excited as they are, and that it was as easy as it was to find them.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have, you start out with a project, you're not, you might not be sure what some people might think of it, you like it, maybe a few other people like it, but it must be a good feeling that to get these voice actors in and have them be like, believe in the project too, right?
Yeah, it makes a big difference, and it's good seeing them laugh with the scripts and really enjoy diving into their characters, and all of them are nailing them like head on, exactly how I pictured it in my mind, and even then some,
Right. And speaking of the characters, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on some of the characters? Maybe, obviously they're all going to have different sort of jobs, different sort of personalities.
Yeah, for sure. We have... Well, our cast is pretty big for such a small independent production. We got 8 main characters who will be seen throughout the show. Of course, the main characters being Dawson Connor and Clara Hope, which is played by Anna Hewlett and Vince Casso. And Dawson Connor is basically us. He's the super sci-fi geeky nerd who goes to Comic-Cons and gets swept up into this alien apocalypse event and is forced to deal with it. Unlike his counterparts in the show, who are all military trained and have, covert ops special training and stuff like that, Dawson is literally just the nerd living his wet dream in this alien apocalypse. So to him, it's kind of just throwing everyone into terrible situations by running headlong to see what the next cool sci-fi thing he can get himself into. And then Clara's got to deal with the follow to that, and she's kind of our rock. She leads the team, the onboard security force. Of course, with that team, we have Simmons and Fletcher, who's kind of her second and third in command. Simmons is our main kind of badass female character. She's also in a same-sex relationship with one of the main characters on the bridge named Reggie Fitz, so we can touch on some controversy and social issues around that. And then we have Fletcher, who's more of the introverted nerd, the Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master who hides in his room and everything, but he ends up taking engineering as his main thing and becomes a big part of the team because of that. And then we have Marcelo Carlos, our African-American character, played by an awesome guy named Mike Allen. He's an ex-weapons dealer turned, recruit to Lost Hope, who ends up helping them and getting kind of caught up in all this events too. And then, of course, we have Captain Reiner, who's played by Michael Hurst. He's our old school, kind of bigoted old fart who has some choice things to say about, the state of the world these days, crazy kids and all that. And he heads up the actual commanding of the USS Hopeful, where there's this massive city built inside, and he becomes kind of the caretaker of the lasting humanity. And so this team, who's not really cohesive, not really good at working together, and doesn't really have all the skills to deal with an end-of-the-world situation, are thrown together and forced to defend this alien apocalypse. And basically from there, we're going to watch them struggle against everything from universal phenomena to, of course, aliens attacking to just their own internal struggles and conflicts.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I noticed you were talking about some controversy and that sort of thing. I noticed that in the trailer where he's trying to fight off that Xeno. Yeah. And he makes comments regarding race and feminism and that sort of thing. And I was like, all right, it's definitely an adult-oriented show that touches, like you said, touches on the controversies, surrounding the world today. So,
I just kept laughing when she was eating the donut.
Yes, the donut was good too.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun to animate, actually. Yeah, the controversy is definitely something we want to touch on. I mean, we're definitely a mature show for sure. I don't want anyone to get any misgivings about that. We definitely are for adults. But we want to touch on these things. Like that scene specifically in the trailer especially, I thought was funny because not only is Captain Reiner being kind of bigoted and racist towards Marcelo and kind of sexist towards Clara, but he's also being xenomorphic towards the alien himself. So all around, he's just kind of anti-other people kind of person, and that was kind of the joke we're pushing for there too.
So you mentioned that the alien apocalypse.
Yeah.
Does it start with that, or did it happen and then there's kind of flashbacks, or how does that incorporate to the show, or is it just there was an alien apocalypse, now we lost our home and here we are kind of thing?
Well, it's kind of the whole thing stretches across a couple of decades, actually. It starts in 1947, again, with the Roswell incident. It kind of kicks off from there. With the aliens being, dissected and mistreated at Area 51, they finally escape Earth and manage to get a couple of pods back to their home planet, and then their ship gets shot down before they manage to escape themselves. But those two escape pods make it off with a couple of their friends. And of course, they get home and tell the aliens what happened, and they start coming back. And so, over the decades since that moment, our governments have gone into making what's called Project Hopeful, which is surrounding these three major arcs that we're building to escape the alien apocalypse should it arrive. So we kind of follow the story from then and touch on what happens at the actual attack. So the aliens come to Earth a couple of years earlier, prior to the arcs being completed, and the USS Hopeful is forced to escape, undermanned, unfinished, with our team. And so we'll be flashing back to the 1950s and to present day, and then kind of pushing forward from there as our story progresses.
Okay, yeah, because I'm always curious when there's an apocalypse show or movie of any sort. How much of it do they show, or is it just something where, we had this thing that happened, and now this is us now trying to recover or move on from that. So, okay, awesome, and. I did want to ask too, because you had said, as you said, this show is a cross kind of between Archer and like Star Wars. Mm-hmm. You saw the new Star Wars film, I take it, right?
Oh, I did twice now. I'm going third this week and fourth next week.
All right, so you liked it?
Oh God, I went in there with ridiculously high expectations and came out blown away. I mean, without Star Wars, there would be no Lost Hope, or there would be no graphic novel we made, Worlds Beyond the Grave, or the live-action series, Four Villains. Star Wars is probably the biggest influence in my life, and so when I went in there pie-eyed, hoping for the best in the world. I've been disappointed by those prequels, and as soon as I came out of that theater, the first time I left a theater after watching it for the first time, I was overwhelmed with nostalgia. I don't think I actually saw the movie. I was too busy in my own head going, oh my God, there's Han, oh my God, there's Leia, oh my God, there's all this stuff that I love. And so the second viewing, I came out of the theater feeling, wow, that it really was a solid, good movie, great story, and it really tied everything back to the original trilogy,
Yeah, and I did my best. Justin and I, we both did our best to try and see it before too many other people saw it, and because with social media, even if you're actively avoiding social media or other people, chances are you're still going to see or hear or read something that is going to ruin it, for you a little bit. So, overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was very entertaining. Now, I'm not nearly the Star Wars enthusiast that you are, or that many of the other folks at Entertainment Buddha are. My one kind of flaw with it was it was very similar to A New Hope. There was a lot of stuff in it that's like, oh, they did that before, they did that, not necessarily just A New Hope, but the original trilogy. Yeah,
I actually found that first movie, a lot of the sscenes mirrored the first two movies. It was almost like they crammed A New Hope and Empire together, and then said, okay, let's use this as our framework to build this new trilogy. It was interesting. There was definitely moments when I was like, oh, you might be leaning a little too heavily on the original trilogy here, but overall, I think cohesively it came together well enough that it stands alone as its own movie.
Yeah, and for people who, Justin, you mentioned this, when we did our Star Wars podcast. If you were someone who had never seen a Star Wars movie, this would be a really, really great movie for for them to get in.
Right. I mean, I'll say whenever I critique it that it was a very entertaining movie. It's just that it's one of those that I understand why they did it. It's more like they want to bring us back to that feeling. Like when we were kids and we see this movie for the first time and we think it's, the greatest thing ever. I mean, would you say that that's one of your biggest influences? Is it like all the original Star Wars stuff?
Oh, by far, for sure. I think the big thing about this movie is I kind of felt when I left it that I had the same feelings that my parents got to have when they watched that original cast on the big screen for the first time, It was kind of like the original trilogy for our generation. It had that sensation to it. For sure, and I think that part, the original trilogy is a massive inspiration. I love the gritty feeling to it, the real visceral, textural feeling of the practical sets and the real explosions and all of that. And I think that coming back to that, is what's drawn me back to this new trilogy so much, is that the aesthetics is there, the tangibility of the characters interacting with sets is there, opposed to just green screen. And I think it made a huge difference. And because of that, it made the movie, that much better for me than the prequels.
Right. I mean, what other things when you were growing up? I mean, it sounds like you've always been sort of into, creating your own stories, with your comic books and now with animation. What are the other things that kind of influenced you when you were growing up?
Oh, let's put it this way simply. I have a massive god complex. I am a Dungeons & Dragons dungeon master or game master for Shadowrun and Star Wars campaigns. And so I loved creating entire worlds and species and races and the political, economical issues between them, and then throwing my players right smack dab into the middle of it and just blowing the crap out of them, And so that's kind of where a lot of my inspiration comes from in making these vast, massive sci-fi worlds. But when it comes down to specific inspirations, I mean, I grew up watching tons of sci-fi, Doctor Who, back in his black and white days. Of course, Firefly more recently being one of my favorite series of all time. The anime Cowboy Bebop, of course, is very similar to Firefly. I really love as well. Battlestar Galactica, which is the newer one, of course, the dark and gritty. I mean, I watched the other one as a kid, too. And of course, we got lots of influences in the show directly, like Dawson being kind of a comic book geek nerd video gamer who gets caught up in this alien apocalypse, is very much similar to, what was it, The Last Starfighter, I think, where they play the video game and he gets swept up in their alien apocalypse kind of thing. So, yeah, there's lots of little references to all my favorite sci-fi throughout the
I was
series.
actually going to ask if you were influenced by Last Starfighter. That's pretty ironic. Who is your favorite Doctor?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Troy Baker is one of my favorites for sure, but David Tennant, obviously, he's one of the strongest, especially for our generation. So I'd have to probably say it's a tie between Baker and
Yeah,
Tennant.
I was talking to Nick last night. I just finished the Jessica Jones series, and David Tennant he's an absolute tour de force.
He's probably the best villain I've seen on TV in 10 years.
Well, I mean, getting back to him, I mean, do you have, favorite character? I mean, do you have... It sounds like you like to be, somewhat sadistic. Do you tend to lean towards, say, heroes or villains? Because I feel like generationally, sort of the millennials and the younger kids, even guys our age, it's more like they lean towards the anti-hero, the guy that you.
Yeah, I love the anti-hero for sure. I love that idea. Yeah, the underdog, if you will.
Yeah, sort of like the guy you don't really know about. I mean, that's probably why. Han Solo was so popular, and then now it's Poe Dameron, where it's like you kind of know their intentions, but yet you don't. There's sort of this air of mystery to them.
Yeah, I wish Poe actually got more screen time, because I have a feeling he's going to become one of my favorite characters out of the new trilogy.
So who do you think... so in the Star Wars... We're getting back to Star Wars here, but
big influence.
I want to know your opinion with the new film.
Mm-hmm.
Is Rey any of the main characters' daughters? People are thinking she's Luke's daughter or another? People are saying she's a Skywalker somehow. Do you believe that, or what are your thoughts?
I tend not to make those kind of snap judgments, because you know what they like to do. They like to lead you one way and then throw it the other way, right? But in this case, I think it might be pretty safe to say that she's related to Luke Skywalker somehow, if not the through him directly, but through Leia even. I mean, for all we know, she could be Han and Leia's daughter too, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, but I mean, see, the thing that I have an issue answering those kind of questions is that they said they're going to wipe the expanded universe clean and start fresh for these new trilogies, but I've noticed there's been a lot of similarities between the novels and Han and Leia's kids and everything, as there was to the novels. I mean, they're not identical. They definitely have veered away from them, but they're definitely lending from that expanded universe that they said they wiped clean. So it's interesting to see some of that coming through. So honestly, though, as for Rey being related, I think I'm going to leave that to be a surprise to even me. I'm not going to make any snap judgments there. What about you, though? What do you think?
I think she's Kylo's sibling of some sort.
They're related somehow.
I think... Because you think about the original trilogy, you have Darth Vader as Luke's father. That was one of the biggest cinematic plot twists in the history of film. Yeah. And I think for this, granted the first film, you already find out that Kylo is Han and Leia's son, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously that leads to why did he turn? what happened with that. So, which I'm sure they'll get to in future films. But I think Rey is obviously this generation's version of Luke, and Kylo is obviously the evil Darth Vader wannabe.
Yeah.
But so I feel like it's going to be like there's going to be another sort of family tie in there somehow. They're not just going to be too complete, because the way the whole torture scene was, where Kylo Ren's trying to basically steal information. And she was able to resist that. She kind of was starting to realize her abilities. So I don't know. I think it's going to make for a pretty interesting matchup in the however many films they're doing.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's interesting to see, too, because that there's going to be some big reveal in the next movie, because this is going to be Empire's counterpart. And Empire was where they had that big Darth Vader reveal.
Right.
So you got to expect them to try and throw something in there, which is why it's interesting that everyone's immediately jumping towards Luke Skywalker being her father, but knowing them, like I said, they'll probably do the bait and switch thing, where it's not what you think it is, so that they have a bigger reveal.
Well, I mean,
but we'll see.
The biggest bit of speculation that I heard is that Rey is Obi-Wan's daughter, but I mean, unless he's making Ghost Whoopi, I don't think that's gonna hold water. So.
Well, I mean, if Anakin can be born purely of the Force, come on, I think anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets younger as he goes back to Hayden Christensen, I mean, I guess anything's possible.
I'm Hayden Christensen more like
I saw Shattered Glass on Netflix, and I just cringed.
Ooh, is that one with Hayden Christensen
he's
in it?
terrible.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, don't even worry about it. Just skip it.
I watched that Jumper movie. It wasn't too bad.
I never saw that one.
A lot of people didn't give it a chance because of Hayden Christensen.
So I guess he kind of submarined his own career with their Star Wars.
There's this movie Jumper. It's got Hayden Christensen. I'm out.
Yep.
Well, I thought it was interesting because I didn't realize this at the time, and I don't know when news initially broke, but there was an article recently circulating about how Leonardo DiCaprio was in the running instead of Hayden Christensen.
That would have made it a whole different movie, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, do you think? I mean, personally, I think it might be kind of hard to see DiCaprio in that type of movie, but it couldn't have been worse, right?
I have to agree that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting, and now he's doing the Revenant, where he's lost in the wild, and but yeah, that movie I'm looking forward to seeing.
The Revenant.
Yeah, I heard it's very, very good.
Yeah, a lot of my friends have already seen it, and they're quite raving on it.
Nice. Yeah, actually, I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan.
Nice.
And so I just watched Hateful Eight recently.
Oh, how was it?
Personally, I thought it was very good.
Yeah?
Yeah, like I said, I'm a Tarantino fan, so it's hard for him to really
let you down.
Yeah, let me down or anything. And the fact that cast that he has, it's going to be good.
All A-listers, yeah.
Yeah. It was a little long, but I also went to the Roadshow version, so I got to see it in 70 millimeter. There was a
nice.
10 or 15 minute intermission in between. But the guy that really stole the show was Walton Goggins, who was in Justified.
Nice.
I can't think of what other. He was in Sons of Anarchy briefly. I forget what other stuff.
No, he's
in.
a good actor though.
Yeah, he's very good, and in this film he's very good as well. So, and it's got a nice little twist at the end too that you aren't expecting.
Might not see coming. Yeah, I just rewatched the Django actually over Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I watched it in theaters and I walked out. I was like, that was a good movie. But watching it again on the small screen, a little more intimately with my family, it's a really well-made movie, start to finish.
Well, that's the one thing I learned about Tarantino films is you watch it the first time and maybe you're not all that impressed. But then you watch it again a second or third time, and it kind of seeps in a little bit more, and you kind of get it a little more. Because I was the same way as you were with Django. I saw it once, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. It's not my favorite Tarantino film. And then I watched it again, I was like, okay, yeah, this was really well done. This was really, Christoph Waltz was amazing as per usual.
Oh yeah.
But I think my all-time favorite Tarantino film is Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, which again you have to watch a couple of times to really get.
Well, and especially because it's so out of order.
Yeah,
like you have to
jumps around
literally
back and
watch like
forth.
each segment or each chapter as like its own kind of thing. But I love Inglourious Bastards too.
Oh yeah, that's
I
one
love
I
that.
should rewatch actually.
Yeah.
I mean, are there like filmmakers that you watch and you try and incorporate into your stuff?
Oh yeah, by far. I mean, my big top three are James Cameron being one of my number ones, mainly because he was a Canadian director as well, and he's done some amazing things in the technology sector. In fact, it's funny because my main three would be George Lucas, Spielberg, and James Cameron. And I know that they're the titans and they're kind of the go-to inspirations. But the reason I like them isn't necessarily because of their movies, but because of the technology that they've driven forward over the last 20 years, 30 years even, for each movie that they make. They are actually titans in that side. I respect them more for the new technologies and the new tools that they've created for us creators, more so than the movies themselves. And those three, they've really changed
Well,
the
they've
game.
also sort of reinvented the art of, filmmaking and, telling a story, because they were the ones that sort of came out of, well, I guess what is like a modern film school first. And they were the ones that sort of, led the charge and were the trailblazers for, people
Oh
to
yeah, I
learn
mean, like
from.
people didn't want to touch Star Wars originally when George Lucas pitched the idea, and it's a hard sell especially at that time. So it's surprising it even got made for the most part. But he pushed the technology. He did space battles differently than all the other shows at the other time that were doing it, and pushed the technology that way, and it turned into something that was just gold. Obviously, I mean, Star Wars is so ingrained in our culture now that it's almost a religion of its own.
I did want to ask you. So, going back to Lost Hope here, on average, for you to make an episode from the brainstorming till it's complete, like what's a time frame for that like?
Well, if I had the team I wanted, it would take about 6 months. But currently, with me and Natalie doing it ourselves, it's about a year and a half per 24-minute episode.
Okay.
It's on average, it's about 15 hours per character per 1 minute of animation.
Wow.
So it's actually quite substantial. But thanks to the new tools that we've purchased, we're using a software made out of Montreal, Canada here called Toon Boom Harmony. Disney's now moving over to it. Archer actually just moved over to it as well. Bob's Burgers uses it. Family Guy's now using it. It's an amazing piece of software. But what it allows us to do is streamline our process tenfold by allowing us to take the full 3D sets and import them into the 2D animation environment and play with our 2D characters like paper dolls inside the set, like you would a He-Man figure in Castle Grayskull, So we're basically playing with these little paper dolls. Yeah, right? So we're basically playing with these paper dolls in this 3D set and making them walk in and out and make them get closer in depth to the camera and walk behind objects. So it really takes a big chunk of work away from the animator that we used to have to do when we'd have to, conglomerate the sets and the characters afterwards in compositing. So with all these new tools, again, driven by people like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, James Cameron, and all them, this new technology they create, it makes it easier and easier for small groups like us to make amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive because, I mean, we've all watched cartoons. We've all grown up watching. What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, I really, geez, I don't even know. I love Ghostbusters. Obviously, that's one of my favorites. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of course,
All right,
as well.
good one. Good.
But I don't know. I also liked kind of the obscure stuff too. At the time, I was watching it. You ever heard of a show called Cyber Six?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's an interesting one. It was I think a French Canadian made one. It was actually pretty good. I think it made 2 seasons in total, but it was a bit like a thinker, especially for a younger kids show. But I was also warped at a young age. Let's start from the beginning of how I kind of wanted to make an animation studio, actually. It comes down to me catching a late-night double feature on Showcase, of course. I probably shouldn't have. I was pretty young at the time, but they played Ghost in the Shell and Akira, the 2 main Japanese animes that are just like, if anyone knows an anime, it's going to be one of those 2, you know? And they really push on the political agenda, and Akira on the other side, more of the horror genre. And they were very adult-themed shows. So as being a young kid, about 10 years old, watching these, they made me obsessed with animation. And, I'm sure my dad doesn't like the idea that I watched them back then. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been motivated to want to make my own really rich, deep adult stories to tell through animation. And so from there, my inspirations actually came from 2 sides. It came from, traditional cartoons we all watched as kids, as well as the more adult cartoons that were coming out of Japan at the time.
Yeah, and one of the things going back to the process of making animation, as you were saying, watching these as kids, we just look at it as, oh, it's just drawings. It probably takes them like 5 minutes to put everything together. It can't be that hard. But it's like, yeah. But then, obviously you grow older, you realize even with the technology we have now, it's still a process. But
we have the technology.
Yeah,
we do. It's for science.
But I always think about there was a South Park documentary where it showed them making an episode basically from beginning to end. I don't know. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't actually. It's interesting
it's
watch.
Pretty interesting because you're familiar with South Park.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they started out, it was basically like construction paper and like it was very, very crude.
Yeah, and all by hand too.
Right. And now they can get an episode done, in a week from beginning to end. And granted, they have a big team of people putting it together. But even with that team and that technology, they were still working like almost around the clock to get it done because
you're pulling 12 16-hour days no matter what,
right? And especially with South Park, because it's such a controversial show and they always touch on very, very touchy subjects,
as well as being current events too.
Right.
That's even harder because now they have to make sure they write a script with those current events and animate it all while that current event is still relevant.
Exactly. And if something happens where they send part of the episode in or the script, to the big wigs upstairs, they're like, no, this is too much. This is too much. You got to change. So then they got to go back and kind of rework it. But I just thought it was crazy. Even a 22-minute show like that, team full of people takes a lot of time. I thought that was a really good look, at kind of their process and how they literally, get it finished at the very last possible minute.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way it is with animation too, because so many things can go wrong. I mean, between actually animating and getting the scripts finalized, and then getting the voice actors in, and then changing jokes during, things are gotta be malleable, if you will. Mm-hmm. And with animation, that's tough to do because with animation, unlike film and cinema, live action, I should say, you have to plan every single second. It's not like you can take a shot for 10 minutes and take the cuts that you like out of it. No, you have to plan every single second down to the T, down to every syllable that a character says, because you got to lip sync and you got to prepare for these things, right? Mm-hmm. And so animation is actually more time consuming. However, on the flip side, it's funny because I went from live action to animation, and I actually find animation in a sense easier because now I don't have to organize 30 people to be on set at one location that I had to get organized and all that. All my sets and all my main actors and everything are right in my computer, and I don't have to leave my home to get everyone organized for it. And dealing with actors too, I just have to sit on Skype with them and direct them for 3 or 4 hours to plug out an episode, so it's not like film where you have to have a whole cast and crew at one location, so we can chip away at it. And our team is going to be very lean. Even if we get full funding, our team's probably going to push out 10 people only, and that will allow us to put out a 24-minute episode every 6 months or so. So we're going to hopefully over the course of 2 years get a 4-part pilot, which culminates in a full 96-minute movie for the fans, opposed to just making one pilot and then hoping it might go somewhere.
Right, and I thought it was interesting you mentioned too, because I was wondering how you obviously have voice actors from kind of all over. So you basically go on Skype, right? Is that what you said, and kind of direct them that way?
Yeah, so especially down in New Zealand and LA, those are the two places I work with the most. Down in LA, I'll usually rent a studio space for Vince or Marisha to get to. Luckily, Marisha and her counterpart, Matthew Mercer, who's huge in the voice acting industry, kind of have their own studio set up in their home, so that makes it a little easier. On the flip side, in New Zealand, I was very fortunate, like I said earlier, that one of my friends in New Zealand, Lewis Roscoe, who's making his own animated series, also happened to have a recording setup so he could, voice act his own stuff. And so I keep saying it, but I do feel very lucky that all these people kind of fell into place and just had the means to make it happen with me. And so, yeah, I end up hopping on a Skype call. We record the sessions through Skype on video as well, so we'll actually be really able to offer the fans to see our entire voiceover sessions with the actors and see how much fun we have and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, it's an interesting process working globally, even though we're such a small production. And if it wasn't for technology these days and social media, we wouldn't have this opportunity.
Right. And I want to check too. So with this plot and with this whole alien apocalypse, and do you have an end game for your characters? Like, do you know how you want everything to end, or are you just kind of going and be like, well, let's see what happens here, and then like, okay, well, we did this, let's see what happens over here? Or do you have it pretty set out, by steps, what you want to do with this?
I'll put it this way. I have already scripted 4 full seasons.
Wow.
Okay.
However, those are always going to be subject to change because I might get new ideas. I mean, the 4-part pilot I've rewritten at least 8 times, maybe even closer to a dozen times before I even decided, okay, I'm going to record it. And then we ended up rewriting again, and we did a whole re-recording of the lines with these new things and everything. So I have a huge overall plan, and each season has its own arc, and each half season has its own arc, and then each episode has its own arc. And then each character has their own backstory that ties to their past and to the present of what's happening. So I've gone really into detail about every aspect I could possibly think of. I've got a timeline that starts in the 50s and moves us all the way up to 2020, and in that timeline, all these events happen, and we'll be jumping back and forth between them to show, how our team came to be where they are and have the skills they have, and then, of course, what's happening now after the apocalypse. So it's kind of a combination of both sides of the story all hitting the fan at once. And I really want to make sure that I have a really solid understanding of where I want to go ahead of time so that people can be stoked to see what happens. There's lots of cool stuff and twists that people aren't going to see coming that I've already written, and I just know people are going to love when they see.
Do you have an easier time writing the sci-fi part or the humor aspects of it?
Oh, it's all pretty tough. I mean, sci-fi is a little easier for me. It's why I choose sci-fi mainly for most of my projects. I'm such a sci-fi fan. It's just what I live and breathe. And as the saying goes, stick to what you're good at, right? And so when it comes down to the comedy, though, that is definitely more difficult because it really comes down to timing. And when you write something on paper, especially when you're doing banter and stuff that's Archer-style banter, it actually plays out a lot differently once you hear the voice actors do it. So during our voiceover sessions, they have their lines, but 90% of the time, the line's going to change. So we kind of keep it open to interpretation of the actor and how they're going to put their character to it and how they see it being said and delivered, too. So from that, we get a nice middle line. So it's a bit of me writing the comedy, and it's also a bit of kind of our actors making their own comedy with it, too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you let the voice actors improvise or if they stick to the script kind of thing. But you mentioned you kind of let them go with it, kind of feel it out.
Yeah, it's kind of an on-the-fly thing. I mean, I definitely encourage the going out there and just improvising your own stuff, but we always make sure we get the bass lines recorded so we know we have the original lines for sure, and then we go through and do a couple more takes where we're having fun and letting them try new takes and different stuff on it. And I think that for them, it gives them more creative freedom and expression, and it allows them to really develop their own version of the characters that might not necessarily be what I originally saw, but for a lot of cases, it's been a lot better.
Right. Yeah, that kind of allows them to grow with the character and yeah.
Exactly.
So you had mentioned earlier too, growing up. I'm assuming you were probably into comic books as well, since you were writing your own.
Yeah, actually not so much. I mean, I was into graphic novels and comic books for sure, but it was always very obscure stuff. I never got into the superhero Marvel DC worlds. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Batman, I love Wolverine, Gambit. Like, those are some of my favorites. The X-Men are probably up there as one of my favorite superhero stories of all time. But when I grew up, I was more into the Japanese anime, actually, at the time. I was into more manga, reading Ghost in the Shell, Akira. There's another great... They made an animated feature of it called Battle Angel Alita, but there's an actual manga series which extends past the story they told, and that is a huge inspiration to me. It's dark, gritty, kind of adult, but really, really well written, and you get attached to these characters, So yeah, comic book side, not so much, but definitely anime and manga and graphic novels at that point in my life, which I've kind of actually grown out of now, interestingly enough.
Did you, you mentioned Battle Angel Alita, did you see or hear about rumors circulating for a movie?
Yes, I did. It was going to be direct
with one of your favorites.
Yeah, it was going to be directed by James Cameron too, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah, him and Robert Rodriguez are supposedly teaming up. I don't think that's been fully confirmed.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it in a couple of years, so I don't even know if it's still even happening.
Yeah, last I saw there was an article October of this year that had mentioned mention those two together on it. But I think at this point it's kind of more in the negotiation.
Yeah, it's like in limbo, if you will.
Yeah. So, and what else? Anything else you want to tell us about the show? Anything else you want to plug?
Well, honestly, I just want to tell everyone, we need help to make this happen. We're very independent. We're a very small group of people. I mean, we're not coming to Kickstarter with a big, huge crowd already like a lot of these guys do. But what we are bringing to the table is the fact that we're well ahead of ourselves compared to most projects. We came to Kickstarter with all the pre-production done. We didn't want to come to Kickstarter unprepared. We didn't want people to say, "Oh, this is just a concept idea that needs to be fully fleshed out that we're donating to." It's something that we can hit the ground running with into full production as soon as Kickstarter is successful. And so that's the big thing. And the biggest thing that people could do for us right now is follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share us around. That's a big part of it too. Just if you think that your friends and family will love us, then tell them. If you know fans of Archer or Star Wars, then tell them about us, because really the community together is what's going to make us thrive. And because of crowdfunding and the new independent scene online and in the video world, I really think it's something that's a tangible, achievable goal between a group of us.
Yeah, it really seems like with that newest trailer that you put out that all the ideas are clearly there. All the the characters are there, the humor's there, everything's there. It's just you need a little bit of time for it.
Exactly, and I appreciate that feedback too, because a lot of the time people will watch our video and not give feedback. So if you're out there listening and you watch our trailer, drop us a line, let me know. I mean, I'm on Twitter personally as the creator, and you can just touch base with us there, and I'd be more than happy to answer anyone's questions and talk to you guys about our process, because really I want to engage the fans on a more personal level than most creators, because they're my friends. That I am a fan of my own show and the genres that inspired it.
So why don't you go ahead and give us the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you have, so that way fans can
So you can
out.
find us on Twitter at twitter.com/Lost Hope Series. The same with Instagram, instagram.com/Lost Hope Series. On Facebook, we're just Facebook/Lost Hope. And then our YouTube channel is a big kerfuffle of numbers and random letters, because we need 500 subscribers before we can claim our URL. So go subscribe and help us get our URL, guys. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and we'll have the trailer available on the Entertainment Buddha post that'll be going along with this podcast.
Yeah, perfect.
So,
and you can also
definitely check it out there. And sorry,
you can also check out all of our videos either on YouTube or on losthope.tv, where we have lots of speed art videos by our artists. We've got some creator updates from me, and of course both the trailer and the teaser up there.
There you go. All the information you need. And when are you hoping to have this on Kickstarter?
All right, so we're launching Kickstarter on the 15th of this month, so just in a couple of short weeks.
All right, and what's your goal?
Our goal will be $30,000 to get the first episode made. Each subsequent goal after that is a stretch goal to try and get each of the other 3 episodes made, starting at $50,000, $70,000, and $100,000. And we think that if the fans love it enough, and if we can prove to you guys that we're worthwhile, then hopefully we'll get enough donations so we can make this really happen.
There you go, and $30,000 compared to some other Kickstarters, that is easy.
Kind of dimes, 30,000 people giving me $1 out of 70 billion people. I think that's doable.
Yeah, I mean, you can find $1 in your couch or in your spare change.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. There you go. All right, so January 15th, look for them on Kickstarter. Check them out now on losthope.tv. And let's see, Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. Hopefully everything works out for you with the Kickstarter, and we look forward to seeing what you have. And as always, be sure to check us out online at www.entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek, one post at a time.